Hi everyone. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to add simple authentication to our Spring Boot application so that users have to log in for certain URLs that are on our website. We're going to eventually end up with login with Google. This lesson also assumes that you've been through the how to set up a Java development environment because we are going to use some of those skills learned there. So the first thing we're going to do is start our Spring Boot application. We're going to start a brand new one so that we can experiment with it. And we're just going to keep all the defaults here, and then we're going to name our artifact my application like we did before in that first lesson. And then we're going to go ahead and add a dependency for web, and then we're going to learn how to add dependencies and figure out what they should be going forward to add more functionality to our application. So we're just going to start with web first off. We'll generate the application and then unzip it, and then we'll open it with Visual Studio Code. Okay, that was in the downloads folder, and I had downloaded it before, so it's in my application too. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we have. We've got under source main Java my application, and so this is the generated one, and we don't really modify this one much, and it's asking me to add Java 7 support, so I must not have added it to this account before. So I'm going to go ahead and add that now just by clicking on that button, and it's going to install all the Java support in Visual Studio Code. And then I want to go ahead and import the Java project. I should say always here, but I clicked on yes. So this installed the Java extension pack, which has support for the Java language, and now it's loading up. Okay, that's done. And if I click on that, it'll go ahead and show what it did. So we don't need to see that now. So let's go ahead and close that. And we also don't need this overview. So let's close all these windows that we don't need. Okay, and that's our application. We don't modify this one. So let's go ahead and see what else we have. Let's go to the instructions. What's next? Okay, so we added Maven Java. So we took all the defaults that are specified here. Now we have our application. So the first thing we're going to want to do is add a web controller so we can pretend that we have different paths on our website. We're not going to actually build out a whole website, but we can fake it right here with the web controller. And we're going to give a few paths to make it look like we have a web hierarchy. So we're going to add the web controller here. And then I don't recommend copy paste, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here. And I mean, it also proves that this works. So just replace the whole thing if you copy paste it. I really recommend typing it out because it will help you. So we've got 4 paths here, the root, and then we've got app, and then a couple more paths underneath that to make it look like we have a website hierarchy. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start the server. And we could start that inside of Spring Boot, which is kind of nice. So we could click on the application itself, and then you'll see these run and debug links up above it. If we click on debug, it'll go ahead and start it in the terminal inside of Visual Studio Code, which is nice. And it's running on port 8080 as it says here. So then we'll take our browser to port 8080 on localhost. And hello is what we have in our controller. And that's for the root path. And so that's that right there on slash. And then on app, we have it print out app. We have something, and then underneath something, we have something else. And each of those print out something. So let's go ahead and check that out. So app is one step down, and then something is another step down into a path, and then something else is another step down. And we're doing this so we can secure certain paths and not others. And we'll be doing that a little bit later. All right, so we checked each of those links there. Okay, and if you changed your port, we can you could go ahead and change the links up there, but you know what your port is. And it should be 8080 by default. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is add some simple authentication. So our POM.xml file, which is our Maven Dependency management file, we're going to go ahead and add a dependency, and we're going to add it on Spring Security. So let's go ahead and clear that out, and we'll add the dependency. We'll just type the word security up here, or start to type the word security. And Spring Security shows up. So we'll click on that, and then if we hit Explore, we'll be able to see the generated POM file. We don't need the whole POM file, we just need the piece. So let's go ahead and grab that security starter dependency, just like it says here. And we're going to add it to our POM XML file. So we'll open that, and then I usually just like to stick it right after the first one there, and then try and indent it properly for formatting. Okay, and so now we have that added in, and let's see what's next. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the security settings to actually have it do authentication. So we're going to create a web configuration file, and then we're going to do the username and password authentication inside of the application. We would typically have a database for this, but we're just going to go ahead and fake it for right now, because what we're actually trying to prove is that we need to log in for certain paths. So let's go ahead and create a new file here called webconfiguration.java. And then again, you should type this out if you're learning. I'm just going to copy and paste. And then if we type that or paste that in, we've got our controller, and you can see here that it's got the HTTP method and the password. So if we go ahead and start our browser or our server, so we just hit the stop button right up here, and then we'll go ahead and go to my application and hit the debug button. And we'll go back to port 8080 on that. And you'll see now that we have to log in to go to any path. And you'll see that on in the web controller and the web configuration. So any path, if we put in the right username and password, we will get in. And there it is. And the username is admin, and the password is password. So that's what it looks like. And we'll see here that we're going to go ahead and, instead of using the browser's static dialog that shows up, we're going to go ahead and have it add a form, and we're going to progress that to our own custom form. So we're going to modify this a little bit to add form login right there. So I'm just going to copy paste again into the web configuration. And then we'll see that form login was added, and an and is necessary in there to actually be able to add the login. So the next step here is to restart the server again, and then try to navigate to the link and see what's different. So we'll stop the application, the server, and restart it. And then let's go back to the browser. And if we go to root, we have to log in. And now this is a different type of form, different style of login. And there we're in. Okay, so now we've got form-based login, and you can see here we can get to our paths. All right, let's see what's next. Okay, now the form looks different. And we're going to add a logout now. So let's go ahead and add to our configuration the ability to log out just by simply adding an and logout to the end. And then Spring Boot will handle the logout for us. And we'll put that right there. So HTTP basic, we're still using basic authentication, and now logout should be possible. So what we'll do here is when we restart the server, we'll be able to go to the /logout path, and that will actually log us out of the application, which will require us to log in again. Let's go ahead and refresh here. Everything's still working. Let's go ahead and log out. Are we sure? And so this is all generated by Spring Boot. And then here we are back at the login page that's saying we've been signed out. Let's sign back in. And there we are. Okay, so logout only works on form-based login. For the basic auth, where the browser manages it, and where Google's managing it later on with login with Google, that logout doesn't work. It's managed by the browser in one case and then by Google in the other case. All right, so now we're going to add a template engine called ThemeLeaf, and that's going to allow us to customize our login template. We could do it without ThemeLeaf, but it does make it easier. It's integrated with Spring Boot, and it makes it easier for us to add the login capability to the page. So let's go ahead and see how that works. So in the POM file, we're going to go ahead and add ThemeLeaf right here. And we got it the same way we got the security. We just went to the Spring Initializer and copied the dependency. Okay, now that we've got ThemeLeaf, what's our next step? Okay, we've added it to the POM, and now we're going to add to our configuration where form login is actually going to get the login page from. So we're going to give it a path to call that will actually put in our custom login page. Let's go ahead and go to our configuration, and right there where it's form login, let's go ahead and right after that put in login page and fail your URL. And we'll just indent the permit all. Okay, and then for logout, we want to go ahead and have it redirect, because remember how it gave us that message, are you sure you want to log out? We're going to avoid that message, and we're simply just going to log out and go right back to the root folder. So let's go ahead and add that here. And you'll see the little red line in Visual Studio Code. That means it doesn't know what that class is, so I'm going to import that. I hit, on the Mac, I hit Command dot, and I believe it's Control dot on Windows. And so here's what's changed. We went ahead and added our login page, and then the logout redirect straight to the root folder. And then we removed the basic auth because we're not going to use that anymore. Let's go ahead and cut that out. Okay, and now we have forms-based login entirely, not using basic authentication. Okay, and so that's where we added our path matcher, so we can say this path redirect to the root folder. Okay, and so now we're going to go ahead and add our login HTML. It says index HTML there. It's actually supposed to be login HTML. I'll change that later. And we're going to put that in the templates folder. So that's where ThemeLeaf templates get read from. So we're going to do new file login.html. And again, you shouldn't copy paste, but I'm going to do that here for the video. And then here I'm reminding us that I named that wrong. In the video, it's going to say index, and I'll probably edit the video later on. But for now, it says index. It's supposed to be login HTML. All right, so that's pasted in, and we have a basic form with username and password on it. And then there's a little error section down here at the bottom. So it's going to do a post to the login handler on the server, and we're using ThemeLeaf, and that's going to go ahead and translate that login URL to whatever it's supposed to be. And then it's going to translate an error attribute in our model, and it's going to, where it says error message here, it's not going to do that message. It's going to do whatever the error is from the server in that paragraph in HTML. Okay, and so now we need a mapping for that login and the login error. So let's go ahead and add these two functions to our web controller, one for the login path to have it read the login HTML page, and then one for login error. When we have an error, it's going to read the same login HTML page, but it's going to paste in the error message right here using the model attribute. So let's put that in our web controller down at the bottom. And then again, it doesn't know that, so I'm going to import that in. You can right click to get that up. Various ways to actually have that menu option show up. And there's an explanation of what that's going to do there. And then we're going to go ahead and log in with a bad username first and see what happens, because that way we can see our error message. Okay, we hit the app folder and we're going to log out. Okay, we were supposed to redirect there. I don't think I restarted the server, so let's see what happens here. So we don't have our custom form, so I didn't restart the server. So we'll have to go back and do that. So I'm just going to log in one more time. So we see that bad credentials message. So it's definitely not using our custom setup. So let's go ahead and go back and let's restart this server. So I'll hit stop. And then let's restart. Okay, we're back up and running, and now we should get a different login page. So I'm going to go to the root folder, and there's our login page. Not as pretty. We can make it pretty later, but it's got functionality. So username, and we're going to do something that's going to fail, and we'll see our error message. And there's our error message that came from the server. And then we'll log in properly, and now we're in. And now we can go to all the paths because now we're authenticated. Okay, so now that we have the whole site authenticated, let's go ahead and restrict access just to the app folder and anything below it. So we're going to change our configuration a little bit. We're going to allow everything to go to root, and then anything that's in app or under is going to need to be logged in. So let's go ahead and add that right above here. We're just going to go ahead and paste it here, and we're going to remove the any request authenticated, because that means anything gets authenticated. Now we're going to limit authentication to just the app folder and anything below it. And then our root folder, so /*, means anything under it, that is going to be allowed without authentication. So let's go ahead and restart the server. And what was the instruction? Okay, we need to log out first and then go to the root URL. So let's do that. And we should be able to get there without having to log in, which we had to log in before. So now we get to hello without login. And let's go to app. Now we have to authenticate on app. So / or root is open and app is not. So let's go ahead and try and ask, and that worked. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add sign in with Google. So we have forms-based authentication now, custom form. Now we're going to go ahead and add the ability for our user to use their Google account to log in instead. So let's go ahead and type OAuth2 as the client. We just started typing it and it showed up. And then we're going to copy and paste that dependency. So it's OAuth2 client. And we're going to go ahead and paste that in our POM XML. I'll put it underneath theme leaf here. And then I'll correct the indentation. Okay, and then the next thing is that's our dependency there, and then we're going to want to change our configuration again, and we're going to remove the form login because we don't need that, and we're going to add OAuth2 login. So let's go ahead and do that now, and there's where we're going to put that, and that's ones to add in, then we're going to remove the ones above it. So no more form login. Okay, so we're going to copy that because we're going to need it. And let's go back to our web configuration, and let's go ahead and highlight the lines we don't need and remove them, and then we'll put the OAuth2 login there. Wait, let me try that one more time. Add the new line first. Okay, now it's there. And we're getting some red. Okay, that's better. It took a while for it to recognize it. Okay, and let's go ahead and restart the server and see what kind of login we get. So we might want to log out first. Now we were using form-based before, so we could still be logged in. So we'll have to see how the browser is going to react. It depends. So let's restart our server here. Wait a second, we have an error. Application failed to start. Why? Client registration repository is not set up. Oh, our application properties is supposed to have our OAuth configuration settings. So we need a client ID and a client secret. So basically a username and password to Google that would allow our application to go ahead and use Google's Google login to access it with our username and password. So basically client ID and password. So now we're going to go to Google Cloud. And in the first lesson, we learned how to set up our application. So we have an application that we can use here to get our credentials. So we're just going to type in login with Google, and then we'll follow their quick start. We're actually going to skip around. There's the credentials part right there, and that's what we need. So we're going to go ahead and create a new credentials for an OAuth client, and that's all we need from this page. So let's go ahead and click on the credentials page. And then here you can see I've done this a couple of times. And so we're just going to do a create credentials, an OAuth client ID. And for our application type, and this is the application that I started before in the other lesson, the very first lesson actually. And then I'll just take the default. We could actually give it a better name. All right, so here it's going to be localhost. Now, if you have a custom domain set up, it's going to be whatever that domain is for the URL that's going to be calling from. Now, this is the one that we're going to redirect to. So when they're logged in, where do we want them to go? Do we want them to go to what endpoint? And so Spring Boot actually has one for OAuth, and Google is set up for a certain thing there. I don't know what it is right now. So let's go ahead and we'll configure it, and then we'll come back and edit this with the right path. So let's just go ahead and open up the instructions. Let's see. Let me reopen them. Hold on. Get that window out of the way, and then so I gotta scroll back through the instructions to where we were, and we're on the OAuth setup. So we're down here somewhere. No, a little bit farther than that. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we already did this step. And here's what we need to add. So we need to put this in our application properties file. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'll paste it here. And it wants our client ID. So let's go ahead and get that. So that's the client ID right there. So let's copy it. And we'll replace client ID right here. And then we need to put in the secret. So let's copy that. Okay, so now that's configured. Let's remove that blank line up there, and we'll just add one to the bottom. It's not necessary, but I like to do that. Okay, and so then we'll hit OK on this. We don't need that anymore. So now let's go ahead and get that address, because I can't remember what it is. And it does give you an error message and tells you what the path is supposed to be. That's where I got this from originally. But let's go ahead and skip that error part, and it's login OAuth 2 code Google. And so let's go ahead and modify that, and we'll just paste that path in to the end of our domain. And so you'll see that there. And now when we save, this should work. Okay, so back to the instructions. We've done that. We restart the server. Okay, and the server is still not happy, but that could just be a timing thing, so hold on a second. Oh wait, no, I know what it is. For some reason, this run from here doesn't download all the Maven dependencies, so we need to run Maven, and I could run it right here. But let's go ahead and open up a terminal window. instead. So what's wrong is it needs to download some dependencies for the OAuth to work, and that run debug right there doesn't actually do that. And so starting it again here won't do anything. We'll still get the same error message. So what I'm going to do now is go to the terminal window and just run Maven. So I'm going to go to where I downloaded it. So it's in our downloads folder, My Application 2. And yours could be somewhere else. And then I'm going to run the Maven command here. So on OS 10, it's ./mvnw clean install. And all it's going to do is clean out the old files and install the new ones. And you can see here that it's downloading a bunch of dependencies that weren't gotten from the Visual Studio Code run debug function. And we could have done this in Visual Studio Code, but this way I know works for sure. So build successful. So all that really needed to do was download some files. So now if we hit run debug here, our server starts properly. And now it's accepting traffic on port 8080. So that's all it was. So let's see, we restart the server. We're going to log out and then go to our root URL. So here we are unauthenticated, and that's okay. So let's go ahead and hit log out, and it brings us back there. Now let's go ahead and try app, something else, and now we have login with Google. So then we'll pick our username, and now we're authenticated, and we're in. So that simple, we have now login with Google. And that's pretty much it. You might need to clear your cookies beforehand. And for the Spring Boot security reference, here's the link. Please like and subscribe below. Thanks for watching.